Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to speak maskless today. I'm Gary Gray. I'm going to be your liturgist this morning, and I'll be joined in a few minutes by Reverend Doug Watkins, our interim lead minister, who will give the message for today. I'm really happy to welcome you all to our worship service this morning. Whether you're here on site or watching us from at home in your pajamas, we are really glad you're here. We are united as one community, more together than alone. This is a liberal religious community of spiritual seekers. We welcome all, whatever your age, race, ethnicity, your way of being in body and mind, your gender expression, sexual orientation, or religious background. All are welcome here. Our core values are freedom, reason, respect, and love. If you're visiting for the first time this morning, a special welcome to you. There are so many things you could have chosen to do on this bright spring morning, and it is pretty nice out there. We are really glad you've chosen to be with us. I hope you feel warmly welcomed and that today's message speaks to you and that we'll see you again. If you're here in person, please fill out the guest form that you received on the way in. Both sides if you have children that are visiting with us. We want to be able to stay in touch with you. If you didn't get a form, please ask for one after the service in the back from one of the greeters. If you're visiting us online, let us know you're here by emailing us at welcome@elliottchapel.org, so that we can personally welcome you to this beloved community. We hope that all of you will join us for coffee hour in Adams Hall today after the service. There will be coffee. If you're new and haven't been to coffee hour before, please join us today. Coffee will be good. Conversation could be even better. Just come forward, follow the crowd out to your right, and you'll be right around on the way to Adams Hall. As we light our chalice, they're coming. As we light our chalice, we invite the light of truth into our whole being. Our opening words are, what if religion includes the sigh of longing breathed in an expectant, lonely hour of night? What if prayer includes holding and being held, or the feeling of warmth from the touch of a hand on the naked skin of the back? What if the sight for sore eyes, the pleasing fragrance, the sound so sweet it breaks open your heart, is the essence of the holy itself? Then the cathedral of the sacred might be the kitchen, the bedroom, the garden in full bloom, or the blanket laid out and waiting for the sun. The faithful act might be the healing touch or the willingness to be vulnerable to our need to be loved. Religion might be what the body needs, what it desires, and not just what the mind requires or the soul demands. Then the sensual, the sexual, the spiritual may be one of many sacraments we offer in the worship of a holy life. Our opening hymn is number 21 in the Gray Hymnal, For the Beauty of the Earth. please join me now to say our congregational covenant together. It's printed in the order of service. As a free congregation, we promise to one another our mutual trust and support. To create beloved community, we promise to be kinder to each other than we have to be, to listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to speak responsibly and respectfully, to find ways to improve our church for all members and friends.
Welcome, Scott. Time for all ages.
Good to be back.
Good to share the time together. So today we are going to do something a little different. I guess probably every Sunday we do something a little different for Time for All Ages. But we're going to participate together in a blessing. Today's theme has to do with the ways that the body and all things around that are a big part of what religion is about in our spirituality. And so let's honor our connection with our bodies and the bodies themselves. So as we offer the blessing, I invite you to think of how you offer that touch. We'll invite you to connect with different parts of your body and think about the gifts that they offer. And to do that in the way that you would offer a caring touch to someone who is not feeling well, or any time that you want to show extra love to something, and to really let that connection be a moment that you're fully aware of and that you offer some sense of care and love.
So as we begin the body blessing today, I invite you in ways that feel comfortable for you to touch your hands to your own forehead. May you be blessed with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. May your intellect take you far on your journey. You have been blessed with reason and free will. It is your call every day to use these gifts.
And as you feel comfortable, I invite you to connect with your throat and neck. May you be blessed with voice. May you learn the complex nature of truth-telling. The ability to speak the truth in love is something that requires honesty, empathy, and care. You are challenged every day to seek the joy that comes with sharing your truth compassionately, as well as listening to others.
I invite you in ways that feel comfortable to touch your heart. May your heart be full and blessed with love. May you know the agony of heartbreak as it is intertwined with the elation of true love. Your heart is a strong and resilient organ, one that will be with you until the end of your time on earth. May you keep the wisdom of your heart and always trust the truth it tells.
We invite you to connect with your abdomen. May you always remember that you are a beloved child of the Holy. Your body is sacred and belongs to you alone. May you live into the full expression of your identity as a human being, embracing your true sexual and gender identity. The gift of intimacy brings with it many rewards as well as great responsibility. May you always retain power over your own being, striving towards mutually fulfilling and just relationships.
I invite you to notice your hands. When you were a baby, your tiny hands were your first contact with the world. Before you could see more than a few feet in front of your face, you grasped the finger of your loved ones. You catch yourself with your hands when you fall, and you express love and comfort to others with them too. May your hands be gentle and strong. May you use them to carry light into the darkness and rest to the weary. May your hands always find the place of greatest need, beginning with your own. And may the Creator of all things hold you in the palm of her hand wherever you go.
And finally, however works for you, I invite you to wrap your arms around as much of your body as you can. May you be blessed on your journey. May you remember that growth happens on the journey and that you are never alone. May you always remember that you are a whole person, that each of these parts work together. We offer our blessings upon you, body, mind, and spirit. May you be guided by compassion and truth, justice and love. May you find rest on the journey, always remembering where you came from, being mindful of your ancestors that stand behind you still, whether they are present on earth or have gone back to the soul of the world. May you be blessed in all things and carry that blessing wherever you go. So may it be. As you move through your day, may you continue to bless your entire being and how you act in the world. We'll sing you out with our love and look forward to hearing more about your adventures in religious education when we get together after the service. Let's sing together. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share and bliss we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share and bliss we live. Continuing our emphasis on the body, one of the most essential and sacred components of who we are is the very gift of breath itself. And so as we prepare ourselves to move into a time of reflection and contemplation, let's take a moment to be aware of how our body is situated, to sit in a way that feels balanced and comfortable in your seat, if you can, with your feet firmly planted on the earth. And if you are comfortable doing so, to close your eyes and become more and more aware of your breath. To breathe in deeply and fully all the way down to the center of your being and release that breath as a gift and a letting go. And one more deep breath to pull all of your awareness into this space and time. Holy One, who has given us the breath of life, today we remember to breathe deeply, to rest, to take in, to pause before we act. But that is not the end of what we hope and pray. For there are times when which we must take in a deep breath, poised on the edge, and risk jumping in, taking action, risk speaking up or using the gifts that we have been given, so that at the end of our life, we can say with absolute clarity that no part of our existence was wasted in fear of failure or fear of success. May the breath hold us, inspire us, prepare us to begin to offer the gifts of our awakened presence, full of love and light today. before we move into a couple of moments of breathing and being. If there are folks in your mind and heart that you are holding in a special place of care, I invite you to speak their names now. For just a moment, may we breathe and be together. For all the matters of our life that we are holding in our mind and heart, for all the people that we have named or we are just right now thinking of with love. May a sense of life itself, the breath of life, flow through them and you and all living creatures, holding them in sacred and beautiful life itself. This we hope and pray in the name of love that will not let us go. Amen, and blessed be. Remaining seated, let's sing Spirit of Life, number 123 together. One of the essential things that we do again and again every day is that we take stock of what we have been given and think about how we will use that gift in our lives. Our time of offering always asks us to do that, and in this season when we are in the midst of our stewardship campaign, it is an especially important invitation to think about what matters and how we can help maintain that. To tell us a little bit about their connection with the congregation and why they give, I would like to invite Bob Boyd to share some of his thoughts as we are in the midst of our canvas. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm Bob, and I'm a Unitarian. Hi, everybody. I wanted to make it clear that I speak for Kay as well as for myself. I'm a product of the Southern Protestant Church, specifically the Disciples of Christ. Kay is a Yankee. She was a Presbyterian in Pittsburgh. For the first few years of our marriage, when we didn't have kids, we practiced more non-religion than we practiced religion, as was true of a lot of young people in those days. But when we had kids, by that time we were in St. Louis, we started church shopping, and sure enough, in the early 1970s, we happened upon Eliot Chapel. Our first experience with Eliot Chapel, this is back in the old days when this wasn't here, and those lovely, comfortable seats were long, hardwood pews. So it's a lot different. The piano, I'm not sure it was the same piano, but it was a Steinway, I remember that. And Tom Lois, who was the de facto music director at that time, was playing You've Got a Friend and singing it at top volume. And I mean, when he played piano, he was a very vigorous piano player. So it was like having a rock concert in the Sunday morning. And we thought, wow, this is kind of the place for us. And I'm happy to say that we have known Carol Jo for all that time. Oh, me. We signed the membership book in 1972, so we've been around for a while. We've seen Eliot through a number of changes, some that had happy outcomes and some that led to situations that we had to work through with some degree of effort for the entire congregation. But through it all, our church has remained the linchpin of our lives, the center of almost all of what we do, both spiritually and socially. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say we could not have done what we have done, raised 3 children successfully and loved the company of 4 grandchildren, without Eliot and Eliot Chapel's congregation, among whom we number almost all of our closest friends. Those of you who've been around for a while may remember that Kay was first the newsletter editor and then one of the administrators of this church for more than 20 years until she retired in 1997. She did pretty much the same stuff that Christy does, except that she also edited John Robinson's sermons, which was an interesting task. We are either very dedicated or hopelessly naive, because twice we have been talked into chairing the canvas. One or the other of us has served on about every committee and board that there is to serve on here, except the Board of Trustees, because it wouldn't have been fair for Kay to be working for herself. It's a good idea. But throughout, we have maintained our contribution to the church at about the level of 5% of our net income. Occasionally, we've had to adjust, but when circumstances have improved, we've readjusted. Our love of Eliot makes our yearly contribution an act of love, a way of reaching out not just to the institution and its staff, beloved though they may be, but to the amazing folks, old like us and new and bubbling with energy like the bright young families who've joined more recently, so that we say we are pledging, we mean we love you. Thank you.
Thank you. As we move into our offering, we are reminded that this is the last Sunday of the month, and all through this month, we have been sharing our offering with Seed St. Louis. We will continue to do so today, and I hope you will be generous in supporting their work of various community gardens and orchards throughout the larger St. Louis area that allow us to connect with the planet and also to feed each other. It is definitely consistent with our sense of connection and our values as Unitarian Universalists. May a spirit of generosity inspire our giving as the offering is now given and received. Beautiful, Adam. Thank you. As our greeters come forward with the offering, I invite us to offer our own sense of blessing to this and its greater good. As we speak together the dedication of gifts found printed in the order of service. To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these our offerings. Thanks to you all.
The reading today is by Audre Lorde, who describes herself as black, lesbian, mother, warrior, and poet. She was a fierce advocate who addressed the injustices of racism, sexism, classism, and homophobia. Here she writes about the erotic. The erotic functions for me in several ways. The first is the power which comes from sharing deeply any pursuit with another person. Sharing of joy, whether physical, emotional, psychic, or intellectual, forms a bridge between the sharers, which can be the basis for understanding much of what is not shared between them and reduces the threat of their differences. Another important way in which the erotic connection functions is the open and fearless underlining of my capacity for joy. In the way my body stretches to music and opens into response, hearkening to its deepest rhythms, so every level upon which I sense also opens the erotically satisfying experience, whether it is dancing, building a bookcase, writing a poem, examining an idea. One reason the exotic is so feared and so often relegated to the bedroom alone, when it is recognized at all, is that once we begin to feel deeply all the aspects of our lives, we begin to demand from ourselves and from our lives' pursuits that they feel in accordance with that joy of which we know ourselves to be capable. Our erotic knowledge empowers us, becomes a lens through which we scrutinize all aspects of our existence, forcing us to evaluate these aspects honestly and not to settle for the convenient, the shoddy, the conventionally expected, or the merely safe.
So, once upon a time, there were these two beings in a garden, and they were presented with all manner of amazing things. All the resources in this incredible garden were theirs as a resource. All of them, except that is one particular tree and the fruit that was produced on that tree. That was off limits. From this ancient story, an awful lot of trouble has been produced for human beings. Now, it is a classic example of an ancient myth, and the important thing about myths is not that they're true or untrue. We often use that word to suggest something that is false. The real original meaning of the idea of myth is a story that talks about deep questions. It doesn't necessarily always try to answer them, but to illuminate their depth and complexity. And for some strange reason, we have decided in this complicated story of two beings that are tempted to eat this fruit of this forbidden tree, we've decided often in our history to assign that what that fruit was really about was sex. And what went wrong is that they partook in sex, which makes no sense whatsoever no matter how you slice the story. First of all, probably when it was told, since one of the many purposes of sex is to procreate, it was probably a time where procreation actually was quite needed in order to populate the world and allow us to do what needed to be done. But somehow we put forth in that myth that when presented with all these amazing things and we eat of the fruit of this tree, the problem there was human intimacy. And the thing is that as scholars have looked at the story, and if you really read it carefully, chances are pretty good that what that story was really about, what the fruit was really about, was the knowledge of good and evil, knowledge itself. And you could argue that it was curiosity that led both of those beings to partake of that fruit. And it may be trying to explain why, ever since then, we always are curious and explore, sometimes if it gets us into trouble and leads us out of a paradise way of living. It actually might illuminate one of the core reasons we are human, that curiosity, that need to know. But we have often come away from the story believing that it says something about what is deeply wrong with us as human beings. And some of that wrongness found its way into some core philosophy that has been powerful for a long time in human history. Going back to Plato, there is this division between the mind and the body that is often called dualism. And Aristotle and Descartes also weighed in with their own understandings of why, and it was almost always put forth, that the mind and the spirit were superior to things of the body. Descartes, in particular, set up the division between the two and made the mind more abidingly true and most akin to the sacred. When we are thinking, we are most like the holy and most connected to it. And the ideas of dualism took off with so many philosophical thinkers. Immanuel Kant, Friedrich Nietzsche, David Hume, all were deeply influenced by this division between the body and the mind and the spirit. And even when contemporaries like Spinoza opposed this Cartesian dualism, unifying the mind and the body, God and substance, and it became fashionable in Western philosophy with people like Heidegger and Jean-Paul Sartre and Jacques Derrida to all argue that the division of mind, spirit, and body was actually destructive. Still, it remained very prominent and powerful. We were not able to liberate ourselves much less from the sexism and racism that tended to plague our thinking. It is amazing how often we associated sexuality with things that were more earthy, and how we tended to think that women and people of color were more connected with the earth and therefore not as holy. It is deeply a part of philosophy that we still find ourselves struggling with. For so many reasons, as we think about our relationship with our body, when we think about our relationship to intimacy and sexuality, it is so important for us to liberate ourselves from some of those old ideas and understand probably what was originally intended by that powerful connection to body, by that meaningful power that the erotic has in our lives, to liberate ourselves so that we may take back some of its holiness and power. And maybe also by doing that, to work on some of the ways that we have used sexuality and sexism and racism in such hurtful and divisive ways. So, even the way that we understand the word sex has changed over the centuries. The original meaning of the word had to do with sakare, which is to section off or divide. And it was meant to originally indicate the difference between male and female, what physically made them different. And then, so that was around the 17th century. And it was in the 18th century, it became an understanding that it related to the act of intercourse. And it was not until the 19th century, and late in the 19th century, that the word sexual was even associated with feelings, the feelings that came along with the erotic and the desire to be sexual. So just as the word has continued to have its journey, we have certainly explored various ideas around sex and continue to. And that is a very good thing, because it is such an important part of how we understand ourselves, our connection to what matters, our connection to ourselves, and, for that matter, our deeper connection with what is sacred in life. Now, all along, there have been folks who have been clear that this sensual, erotic part of our being is very much connected with the holy. Way back in the 15th century, Julian of Norwich wrote that, "I understand that our sensuality is grounded in nature and in compassion and in grace. And I saw that God is our sensuality, for God is never out of the soul." I think if we can, in our work together, understand how it is the integration of mind, body, and spirit, understanding how deeply intertwined they are, that we are most able to do the important work. All of it, justice work, the work of connection, the work of taking care of this planet. All of those are best served by that integration. The other thing that is also important, and why it fits so well into this month's theme, is like so much that is essential to us, it is also the ways that our body and our sexuality and intimacy connections remind us of our fragility and our fears and our vulnerability that are part of its power and its liberation. Even the body itself can so often remind us how fragile we are. One of my first realizations of that was all the way in young adulthood, my first time living in a really cold climate in Wisconsin. And one night, going out the door of the apartment, really not dressed for winter because I didn't think it was very cold, and I was just going to the car to get something, and not taking into account that it was just cold enough for an impossible to see patina of ice to have formed on the sidewalk. And as I was marching merrily towards my car, suddenly my legs flew up in the air and I landed hard on my rear end. So hard that as I was laying there, I began to have this sort of tunnel vision experience where my vision got more and more narrow, and I thought, oh my God, I am passing out here, out in the open in the winter, and I'm going to never be found and I'm going to die in the cold. The typical things you think as a young adult. But in that moment, I also remember thinking just how quickly things can change in our lives, and how in a single moment, everything can go differently, often when we least expect it. In so many ways, the body reminds us of both the most gifted and the most vulnerable parts of who we are. And to understand that in good measure and in balance is an essential part of what it means to really be literally comfortable in our own skin. And when we think about sexuality, it turns out that considering that which makes us vulnerable in intimacy may actually help us think most meaningfully about what sex offers to us. In the mid-1980s, an ethicist who worked for the Pacific School of Religion, Karen LeBox, began to write about a way of understanding sexuality which at the time felt very, very modern. At the time, religious ethicists around sexuality still were very much in the only right time to have sex is in marriage, and preferably in order to have a child. I mean, that was very often, even in contemporary times, taught as an important religious insight into sexuality. But what she put forward is that appropriate sexual connection also keeps in mind vulnerability. She put forth the idea of a sexual ethics of appropriate vulnerability. That is, that sex is a loving and caring connection when you are aware of your own boundaries and needs, as well as the boundaries and needs of other people, and that all people involved in the sexual act are making a choice for themselves, that they're able to consent, and that they are aware and responsible and relational to each other. And she said, if that is really present, there is a very good chance that what is happening in the intimacy is meaningful and worthwhile. And when it's not, whoever the couple or more may be, there is more likelihood that hurt may be occurring. And as she continued to do work in social justice for 30 years, she was aware of how powerful it is the way that there is a softness in our intimacy that we most encounter what is powerful and erotic. And so, as Unitarian Universalists, we also have believed deeply that it is important for us to embrace the essentialness of human sexuality and intimacy, and imperfectly also how the body is essential to our understandings. And so way back in the 1960s, late 1960s, we began to work on curriculum that helped us explore sexuality. The first one was called for short AYS, About Your Sexuality. And it was at the time incredibly controversial because it was very frank with middle school kids about understanding the facts of sex, combined with exploring their own values. And to this day, AYS eventually became Our Whole Lives and is still a core component of every Unitarian Universalist congregation. And we wrote it with the United Church of Christ and also used in their congregations as well. And the essential component still is that people need the facts about sex, whatever their age, whatever their stage, whatever their sexual or gender orientation, but they also need to understand their values. What it is that's important in relationship for them, where they are in their feelings about their own body, what it is that they need, but also what other people need in order to feel whole. There's a reason why we use the name Our Whole Lives, and that we begin that curriculum with our kindergartners and thinking about their bodies, and we continue it all the way into the final stages of life where we help older adults think about what it means to connect in a sexual way, or to find intimacy as their bodies change, or to begin to date in their 70s and 80s. All of those help us understand the power and the wonder of who we are in a total way. As Author Lord says, one of the reasons that the erotic is so feared and relegated to the bedroom alone is that once we have felt its joy, we really are not quite so keen to live an unhappy and unjoyful life anymore, or to accept that other people expect us to. In that way, sex may be liberating for us all, connective for us all, the work of justice for us all. So, where are you in relationship to your body? Where are you in relationship to your sexuality? Does it feel an integrated part of your life? Does your relationship to your body feel like what you wish it to be? This is a place where you can come to explore that and to be more whole. It's an important part of the work that we do together. So finally, before we sing our closing hymn, a reading that I use often and have to read it to myself pretty regularly. It's taken from the writing of Barbara Brown Taylor, The Practice of Wearing Skin. So my last word before we sing. She writes, "I think it is important to pray naked in front of a full-length mirror sometimes, especially when you are full of loathing for your body. You have gotten glimpses of your body as you bathed and changed clothes, but so far you've maintained your equilibrium by staying covered up as much as you can. But this can only go on so long," she says, "especially for someone that believes that God loves flesh and blood, and no matter what kind of shape it is in. Whether you are sick or well or irregular or lovely, there comes a time when it is vitally important for your spiritual health to drop your clothes, look in the mirror and say, 'Here I am. This is the body like no other that my life has shaped. I live here. This is my soul's address.' And after you take a good look around, you may decide that there is a lot to be thankful for, all things considered. Bodies take real beatings, and they heal from so many things, which is an underrated miracle. And to give birth is a miracle beyond reckoning. Here we sit, with our souls tucked away in this marvelous luggage, mostly insensible to the ways in which every spiritual practice begins with the body. In all that we do, may we be kinder to ourselves, our bodies. May we learn to love it and each other more fully. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. Let's rise in the ways that we do and join together in number 311. Let it be a dance. As we prepare to extinguish the chalice, Kendall Gibbons writes, "There is only one thing required of us. That is to take life whole, the sunlight and the shadows together, to live the life that is given us with courage and humor and truth. We have such a little moment in the vastness of time, for all are wondering and love. Therefore, let there be no half-heartedness, but an ardent path in its yearning and the praise. We extinguish this light, but not the light of wisdom, not the warmth that we share with each other in love and connection, not the fire of making a difference in the world. These remain until we gather in this place again." I invite you to take a seat for one more gift of music this morning. Thank you all for joining us for this time together. Before you leave this morning, take a moment to say hello to someone that either it's been a long time or you've never said hello to before. If you're able to, we invite you to join us for coffee hour. Just come forward and go through the door. As you make your way through the rest of your day, May you feel a deep blessing. Thank you for being here, and may goodness follow you as you move into your day. See you next week.